The investigation into Charlie Kirk's assassination is also in sharp focus on Capitol Hill right now. I mentioned, and here it is now, that's a live look on the left side of your screen, FBI Director Kash Patel testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee in an annual oversight hearing that was scheduled before Kirk's killing. That is worth mentioning, because I know in some places this is being sold, oh, he was called up to the Hill. No, this is already on the schedule. And no doubt they're going to talk about it. Kash Patel is heaping praise on federal and local enforcement for the capture of the suspected assassin.
I also want to especially thank our colleagues in Utah, the governor's office, DPS, and the sheriffs out there. State and local law enforcement partnership has been a cornerstone since I took over at the FBI, and it was no different here. These people worked through the night without sleep for days on end. They are to be commended. They are not to be attacked. We cannot do our job without the American public and credible reporting in the media, and that's why Tyler Robinson is in custody today, about to face charges.
Justice correspondent David Spunt. David.
Well, Harris, FBI Director Patel also revealed, relating to the Charlie Kirk assassination, that there were many more, in his words, than 20 participants in a group chat with the suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson. The Kirk subject is one of several that he's talked about today. It's an oversight hearing, as you mentioned, previously, I should say, scheduled. It's really kind of a kitchen sink with a lot of different topics, and at times the FBI director has held his own. Watch.
Honored to be the 9th director of the FBI. I'm not going anywhere. If you want to criticize my 16 years of service, please bring it on. Over to you.
Now, relating to Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, Judiciary Committee Chairman Senator Chuck Grassley announced that he has some new info to show that Kirk's Turning Point USA was part of the investigation by then Special Counsel Jack Smith into President Trump's alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 election. Now, Patel also, Harris, discussing the Jeffrey Epstein case and what is perceived to be, from Republicans and Democrats, a lack of transparency by both the FBI and Justice Department into that case. Watch this.
I'm here to testify that the original sin in the Epstein case was the way it was initially brought by Mr. Acosta back in 2006. The original case involved a very limited search warrant or set of search warrants and didn't take as much investigatory material it should have seized. If I were the FBI director then, it wouldn't have happened.
Mr. Acosta, as he's referring to, is Alex Acosta, the former U.S. attorney in Florida who gave Jeffrey Epstein a plea deal, a non-prosecution agreement back in 2008. Epstein avoided jail. Acosta was then appointed President Trump's labor secretary during his first term. He resigned in 2019 when Epstein was found dead, and the news began bubbling up then. Patel facing several questions on several topics, and he'll do it all again tomorrow in front of the House. But this is the first real time we're hearing from him at length, taking a lot of questions, especially from Democrats. Back to you.
All right. Glad you were all over it. David Spunt, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Nicole Parker, former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor. Josh Ritter, criminal defense attorney, also a Fox News contributor. Great to see you both. Josh, I'm going to come to you first, and please set the table for us. So this is an important day. We'll see the suspect, Tyler Robinson, via live video.
Yes, in Utah, they refer to it as his first felony appearance. We might otherwise know it as an arraignment, but he's going to be formally charged today. We're going to understand what those charges are. And we expect is what was in the arrest affidavit, that it will be weapons charges, obstruction charges, but most importantly, aggravated murder. And I say most importantly because an aggravated murder charge in Utah opens up the opportunity for prosecutors to pursue the death penalty. Now, we may not hear whether or not they in fact intend to pursue the death penalty today. They can make that decision at a later time, but with that aggravated murder charge, that is open to them.
Nicole, when we look at this case, there has just been a trove of information just dumped, and the public is seeing this too. What stands out to you that is critical to the charges against this person?
First of all, I believe that the FBI and all law enforcement deserves major kudos. This is not an easy task. It is quite daunting, and the evidence is just pouring in. Every single thing has to be reviewed, Harris. I think that Discord messages are absolutely critical because it was conversations pre-offense and post-offense. And so, you know, this note that is allegedly now disappeared, but is in some sort of forensic evidence, that he said, I have the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I have to do it because some things can't be negotiated with. That is just absolutely horrifying and disgusting, but that is key evidence. And what's crucial right now is that initially, you've got witnesses coming in saying, hey, I was on this group chat. Now the FBI has gone in and gotten, search warrants that are necessary. You've got to get your evidence clean and clear, because this case will likely go to trial. I don't see this person signing a plea agreement, but
well, he's not even cooperating.
Regardless, it has to be ready for prosecution. Right? He's not even cooperating, and there's going to be a lot on the line, and potential death penalty. They're getting this case ready for the death penalty. I can tell you, having worked as an FBI agent, when it's death penalty eligible case, it takes on a whole new level. Everything will be done with perfection, but there is a tremendous amount of evidence pouring in. Witnesses, they are going to be interviewed.
All right.
Kash Patel said every single witness.
I don't have a lot of time with you guys because I know, Josh, you've got to get back, too, because you're actually in Utah. Discord messages. I want to hear from both of you on this. Nicole, I'll come right back to you. You said pre- and post-offense, disappearing note. Now, is the ability to make something disappear on Discord part of that platform, like a story and Instagram goes away in 24 hours, but it's always there because it's in your archive. It never really goes away, and that's how it's gettable. Talk to me about how you make things vanish online, or if that's even possible in this case.
Would you like me to answer?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I can tell you, in law enforcement, it can be tricky at times with some of these platforms that allow disappearing messages. As far as Discord goes, it originated as a gaming sort of platform, group chats, room chats for people that have similar views on things. That is going to be a task for law enforcement to do, but I have no doubt that they will get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
The other thing is that because you have so many witnesses coming forward as well, they likely still have those messages saved on their phones, on their devices, not disappeared.
Yep. And if you get to those people soon enough before they start killing stuff out, but there's still a footprint. So let's get to the law on that, Josh. How exposed are those individuals who were in the Discord chat? Because this has been a societal question now. Should somebody have turned this guy in? What is a if you see something, say something moment look like in the digital world?
Absolutely. What we're talking about is a conspiracy theory, the idea, or conspiracy charges theory, I should say, the idea that if people were in agreement, meaning they understood what he intended to do, and they either participated in that, helped him in some kind of way, promoted that, encouraged him to do it, or otherwise supplied him with some sort of aid in doing that, they can be brought up in charges as well. And I think that's why Director Kash Patel was so interested in that, because that could be the avenue to open up federal charges if those communications were taking place with people outside of the state or even outside of the country. That might open up the opportunity for the feds to get involved.
Wow. Okay. Compel those others in the room. I'm reading there could be as many as 20 people that they're looking at. I appreciate the expertise and time of both of you. This case is moving on, and we are all over it with the first felony appearance. That lingo that you've taught us today, Josh Ritter, appreciate that as we see the suspected assassin via live video later today. Thank you.
Let's go to Matt Finn. He's in Spanish Fork, Utah. He's got some breaking news. He just spoke with the Washington County Sheriff, Matt Brooksby. Matt, what did he tell you?
Well, John, Fox was the first to talk to the sheriff in Washington County on camera, and he gave us a lot of information here. Obviously, there's a lot of concern about the roommate of the alleged assassin. The governor here in Utah says the roommate was a boyfriend, someone who is transitioning. There was a name being floated around, but now the Washington County Sheriff tells Fox News who the name is of the roommate, and we'd like to play that sound for you.
Okay, so the individual that they came in contact with at the condo roommate was Lance Twiggs.
So Fox Digital had previously obtained that name through an unconfirmed source, perhaps a family relative. We now have a law enforcement official on record telling us that the roommate of the alleged assassin is Lance Twiggs, who the governor here says is a boyfriend. I did ask the Washington County Sheriff if anybody from his staff made note of of Lance Twiggs, if he was transitioning or anything like that, and the sheriff said that they don't have any information on that right now. Also, the sheriff tells Fox News that a lot of attention given to the dad turning his son in, but that the alleged assassin's mother was also present and is fully cooperating. The sheriff also telling Fox that the alleged assassin immediately asked for an attorney that night and did not make a confession, which the FBI Director Kash Patel and other authorities have also been saying that there was no confession on record. Also, coming from the Washington County Sheriff's Office, I would like to play the sound for you talking about what happened as far as once the suspect was taken into custody.
Do you know if Tyler ever made a confession to authorities, or did he remain silent once he was turned in?
My understanding is that he asked for an attorney, so there was no questions beyond that.
The roommate. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The F in messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke all right. I'm gonna have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again, delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what? The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent.
So this is the charging document that we now are well aware of, and our correspondent Matt Finn now joins us live from the jail in Spanish Fork, Utah. Go ahead, Matt, let's begin. If viewers are just joining us at this moment, this was quite a remarkable hour we just watched and heard.
Yeah, Bill, we got a lot of information, including evidence into this case, but also some really despicable and depraved allegations coming out of that press conference, including that the alleged Charlie Kirk assassin praised his own grandfather's gun after allegedly killing Charlie Kirk, texting with his lover. He thinks his grandfather's gun does just fine. Some big reveals in this press conference. The Utah County Attorney says the alleged killer confessed to his family and his lover. Here is some of that sound.
When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate.
Now, after the alleged murder, prosecutors say the alleged shooter messaged with his lover, a roommate, saying that he thought he'd get away with the crime, except he could not get back to the rifle that he ditched near the crime scene, which ultimately police recovered. They announced today they found DNA on the trigger. The county attorney here says video places the alleged killer at the scene. The suspect is seen on video walking to the campus with a limp, consistent with a rifle in his pants. And there were 7 charges announced today. 2 of them are aggravated murder and felony discharge of a firearm. Prosecutors say the charges are aggravated because they believe the shooter killed Kirk for political reasons, and also because the killer knew if he shot and killed Charlie Kirk that it would happen in front of children. This whole thing is terribly heartbreaking, and the Utah County Attorney calls this an American tragedy and an offense to the peaceful people here in Utah. Bill.
Matt Finn reporting live there in Utah. We'll be back with you when he appears virtually before that judge.
Yeah, our panel is here. Paul Morrow, Josh Ritter, Donna Rotano, and Andy McCarthy and Nicole Parker. Paul, I want to get to you first. You're sitting here on set with me in New York. Your reaction to the charges, I heard you say that's new. As we are working our way through aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, obstruction of justice, disposing of the clothing, charge 4, charge 5, witness tampering, when the accused assassin asked his roommate to delete the account, and also the witness tampering where he asked for him to remain silent.
Right, so that's new. We'd actually heard a lot of that that was in that press conference when I was out in Utah. That's the equivalent of a speaking indictment where the prosecutor puts a lot of information into the indictment. In this case, it's an information. He didn't want to go outside the 4 corners of that information, but he laid out a lot of his case. He got a lot of it out there, created that narrative, created the picture of what's going on. The reason I reacted to the witness tampering and the destruction of evidence thing is because he's being charged with that, but that was the main perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, directing his roommate to do it. Now, the question becomes, did the roommate do it? The roommate apparently did not provide the original note. If you caught it, they said the cops have a photograph of the original note, right? So maybe that person, the trans roommate, destroyed the original note. My point is this: they might have some leverage over the roommate, but they don't want to charge the roommate because the roommate right now is a really valuable investigatory vector. Leslie, and let me just close with this. I know we have other guests. I've been saying since the beginning that this thing screams to be a state case. I think that this prosecutor laid out why. You've got the aggravated murder because it ticks the box of putting others in danger aside from the shooter and the perpetrator. It really seems to be quite within the contours of a state homicide, a capital murder case. For the feds, in my opinion, the best move here, I know this is the subject of a lot of debate, the best move is for them to participate in the investigation, do everything that they can, don't file because that way you don't have a speedy trial thing if the feds ever want to bring their case. Wait, let the state case go. You'll learn a lot from the state case. As long as you're within the statute of limitations, you can always bring your federal case later. Gives you another bite at the apple. I think that's how this is going.
All right, let's bring in Donna Rotunno to get her take on all of this. What do you make of this lengthy text exchange where, according to the state, Tyler Robinson confesses to this crime? We've also heard similar confession on Discord, as well as the victim targeting enhancement, because Charlie Kirk was targeted because of his political views, and then this idea of aggravating factors of a violent offense committed in front of children. Can you speak to all of that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think the prosecutor did a great job out there. I think he highlighted everything he needed to. I think it was a fabulous summary. He gave us a lot of information. I think the text messages are very clear in terms of a confession, and I agree with Paul that keeping this roommate/lover really as an ally to law enforcement will be most helpful because they really will have more leverage. In terms of the charges themselves, I am happy, I'm glad to see that they are moving forward on charges involving exactly what happened out there, the number of people who were in danger, the fact that Charlie was targeted for his views and his beliefs. I think these charges are a very, very fair assessment about what actually took place out there, and I think they're going to be very successful. There's good evidence here so far, and I know that there's more to come.
Andy, and now we know he faces the death penalty. As these charges were just announced, notice of intent to seek the death penalty. We just heard from the district attorney.
Yeah, well, one of the things I'd be concerned about with respect to that, as I was listening to the narrative, and I agree with what's been said about how thorough and comprehensive it was, it seems like the parents are very important witnesses. In my experience, juries don't like it when parents have to testify against defendants or when prosecutors ask them to do that. And I can only think of that being exacerbated in a case where the testimony could lead to the death penalty. So I was happy to see that there was so much evidence arising out of the text message with the roommate, because maybe that will obviate the need to have the parents' testimony. And beyond that, I quite agree with Paul that this is a state case. It's the most straightforward way to do it.
Yeah. Hey, we've just got a little more than 4 minutes left in the show. I wanted to get to Nicole and Josh. And Nicole, let's start with you. In this text message exchange, Tyler Robinson allegedly says, "If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence." I mean, to the contrary, this guy seems to have left a mountain of evidence.
I mean, his DNA is all over the trigger and the casings as well, used and unused. But what I think is really interesting, I've always wondered, how long did he plan for this? And based on what I heard in that press conference, he had been planning this for about a week, according to what he said. And also his whole mind process. John, he was right there in the vicinity of the crime that he had just committed, waiting for the cops to leave. He's like, gosh, I really want to go back and get that rifle, but I'm not sure that I can. There's an officer right there. I wonder at what point he said, you know what, forget it. I've got to leave. I got to go back to St. George, and I'm just going to have to leave the evidence behind. And I think it's very alarming. Again, I like to look at this rifle and the weapon selection. This was given to him by his father. From what I understand, it was his grandfather's. Yeah. And he wanted to, his father's like, look, send me a picture of it. I want a picture of this weapon. And he said, oh, they won't be able to trace the weapon back to me if they do a trace. It'll go back to my grandfather or something of that sort. But I think this is very, very compelling evidence. The evidence is mounting, and let me tell you, the investigation is just beginning. This is just what they have for the probable cause affidavit for the information. This is not even the whole case. I am so glad to hear that they are officially going for the death penalty.
Josh, I'll finish with you. We've got a few minutes left here. This is the moment the district attorney, Josh, described Robinson in the weeks leading up to this and how he had started to lean more to the left. Listen here.
Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views.
Josh, what did you take away from that?
I thought one of the things that stood out to me most of all was how suspicious his own parents were of him. They confronted him at first saying, "Hey, where were you?" And he said, "I'm sick." And that's not enough to stop the parents. They still feel like they feel that he could have been involved. And I think it was, one, the pictures that we've seen, but two, these political leanings that they thought he had started to develop inside of him. I'll tell you another thing that I thought was remarkable is what the prosecutor did not mention, and that was any kind of allegations of conspiracy. We talked a lot about conversations that he had with his roommate since the time of the shooting, but there was very little information shared about the planning and who was involved or who knew about the planning leading up to the murder. And there's no conspiracy charges here. So it's interesting if they believe that he acted alone and informed no one else of his plans.
Well, I mean, you look at everything that was laid out here, and the case would seem to be almost open and shut. But of course, in a court of law, you've got to prove all of this beyond a reasonable doubt to the jury, though it does look like Utah County has got such a tremendous amount of evidence. And with the death penalty on the table, you have to wonder whether or not this individual is going to risk going to trial and have the death sentence pronounced against him, or if, like Brian Kohberger, he might just try to plead out for a lesser sentence. Folks, thanks for joining us all. We'll continue to watch this, obviously, going forward. Sandra.
Prosecutor Jim Trusty. And Jim, this is something else. I mean, really hanging on his every word. What stands out to you at the outset?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, the remarkable amount of detail. You know, it's funny. At the end, Jeff Gray, the prosecutor, gave a little bit of a civics lesson about how prosecutors don't try their case in the press and then we wait to court. But he was this long after a very, very detailed probable cause statement. And the reality is those statements don't have to be quite as detailed as it was. You can summarize and still have enough for probable cause. So he kind of has the best of both worlds. I'm afraid in the long run, he's going to see a motion to change venue, which is almost automatic in death penalty cases of high profile. But he probably fueled that fire a little bit. If I'm a defense attorney on that case, I'm talking about how he gave all these vivid details, didn't have to. And you point to the case of the Boston Marathon bomber, Zarniev, whose death penalty recently got reversed by the Court of Appeals because of the pretrial publicity problem in picking a jury. So, you know, it's a great moment for all of us that just want the satisfaction that this is a strong case and that they've got the right guy and a very quick decision to pursue the death penalty. But in the long run, there are going to be some issues from having that much detail out in the public.
Okay, here's more now from Jeff Gray, the district attorney there in Utah County.
Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence.
Jim, when it goes to motive, you heard the question from our colleague Garrett Tenney in the room there. And it appeared what the prosecutor was trying to relay there was remarks from his own parents that he became increasingly more trans in dating his roommate. Do you see this as the driving motivation, as you heard that charging document read there?
I mean, I hate to crawl inside somebody's head that's capable of such an evil thing and pretend I have any sort of, gospel knowledge of what he's thinking. But it does look that this was a political assassination, these warped ideologies of him in particular living with his boyfriend, thinking that somehow this is justifiable or righteous to do what he did. Again, it's a terrible world to crawl into that sort of head, but that motive seems pretty strong. The evidence is going to be powerful, and the presence of the death penalty bill really kind of warps the calculation on how you try this case if you're the defense. I think if this evidence holds up, you're talking about a slow plea rather than a hard-fought battle on guilt and innocence.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Jim Trusty getting his quick evaluation of what we just listened to. Thank you, Jim. We'll speak again later in the week, okay?
As a general note, no electronic usage is allowed unless pre-approved. Any disruptions will be removed. To the jail, are we ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Calling case 251-403-576, State of Utah versus Tyler James Robinson. Could you state your name?
Tyler James Robinson.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Robinson. I'm Judge Graff. Mr. Skordas,
Good afternoon, Your Honor. You're probably already aware of my presence or why I'm here, but if not, I am not entering an appearance. I'm not counsel on this case. I'm working with the county to get counsel assigned, but we need you to allow for the appointment of counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Skordas. I want to go through the qualifications for indigency, but that is my intent, Mr. Skordas.
Very well.
And I thank you for being here. So, Mr. Robinson, you have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the court can appoint an attorney to represent you. I have reviewed your declaration of financial status and find that you are indigent. I'm provisionally appointing a Rule 8 qualified attorney to represent you on your case, Mr. Robinson. Along with their filing of their appearance of counsel, the assigned attorneys must file declarations with the court that outline their qualifications under Rule 8 and Rule 8C, under Rule 8B and Rule 8C for counsel appointment in a case where death may be a sentencing option. I'm ordering that those declarations be filed prior to the next hearing date, which is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. Mr. Robinson, I also wish to inform you of your rights against self-incrimination. Anything that you say in court today could be used against you, and we want to protect your constitutional rights. Mr. Robinson, at this time, you will remain in custody without bail. Mr. Skordas, is there any other points that you wish to address?
No, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Turning to the state.
Yes, Your Honor. Chad Grunander for the state. I'm also joined, and they're listed as attendees, Ryan McBride, Lauren Hunt, David Sturgill, and Chris Ballard. We are the trial team on this case. I do have a few points I'd like to bring up with Your Honor. We have filed a pretrial protective order on behalf of Erica Kirk. We would ask the court to review that. It should be in your queue, Your Honor, and sign that.
Thank you. I have reviewed the pretrial protective order and will be issuing this pretrial protective order in favor of Erica Kirk. Is there any other business that we need to address today, counsel?
Just for the court's information, we did file just recently, within the last few minutes, a notice of intent to seek the death penalty that was filed by Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray. So that should be in the court's file. Lastly, I would just indicate to the court and to, at this point, Mr. Robinson, that we are prepared to collect all of the discovery in this matter and get that turned over to the defense as soon as possible. Rule 16 requires us to provide what we have relied on in charging the information and bringing these charges within 5 days once it's requested. So that'll be prepared to disseminate to the defense as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Grunander. Mr. Robinson, what I also want to do is you have the right to have the charges read that you stand charged of, and I wish to read those to you at this time. Thank you. Mr. Robinson, for count 1, aggravated murder, a capital felony in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-5-202, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Charlie Kirk under the following circumstances. The defendant knowingly created a great risk of death to another individual other than Charlie Kirk and the defendant. Notice conviction of this offense may carry the death penalty or pursuant to Utah Code 76-3-207.7, a mandatory term of imprisonment for life without parole or an indeterminate term of not less than 25 years, that may be for life. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice, if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child aggravating factor, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider as an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent criminal offense in the presence of a child. Count 2, felony discharge of a firearm causing serious bodily injury, a first-degree felony, in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-11-210 sub 2 and 3C, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm, and that the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice, if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor. Violent offense committed in the presence of a child, aggravating factor. The sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider an aggravating factor in their deliberations that the defendant committed a violent offense in the presence of a child. Count 3, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, with intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or pursuant to any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, conceal or remove the firearm used to shoot Charlie Kirk, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or a first-degree felony. Count 4, obstruction of justice, a second-degree felony in violation of Utah Code 76-8-306 sub 2, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, with an intent to hinder, delay, or prevent the investigation, apprehension, prosecution, conviction, or punishment of any person regarding conduct that constitutes a criminal offense, destroyed, concealed, or removed the clothing he wore during the shooting, and the conduct that constitutes an offense would be a capital felony or first-degree felony. Count 5, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony, information, a document, or an item, to wit, directing his roommate to delete incriminating text messages. Count 6, tampering with a witness, a third-degree felony in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-8-508, in that on or about September 11th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, believed that an official proceeding or investigation was pending or about to be instituted, or intended to prevent an official proceeding or investigation, and attempted to induce or otherwise cause his roommate to withhold testimony or information, to wit, directing his roommate to stay silent if the police questioned the roommate. Count 7, violent offense committed in the presence of a child, a Class A misdemeanor in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.10 sub 2 and 76-3-203.14 sub 3A little double I, in that on or about September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson committed criminal homicide in the physical presence of a child younger than 14 years of age, with knowledge that a child was present and that may have been seen or heard the commission of the criminal homicide. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2, Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson, this case is set for September 29th at 10 a.m. It will be a waiver hearing, and I will be the judge assigned to this case. Mr. Robinson, I invite you to join us at that time. Is there anything further, counsel?
No, Your Honor, we'll have counsel appointed by then. Thank you.
Mr. Gurander, anything further?
One item, just for clarification, Your Honor, the hearing on the 29th, is that in person or WebEx?
Thank you. That is a great question. It will be via WebEx.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I want to thank all parties for being here, and this concludes this hearing at this time. Court is in recess.
All right.
So that was Mr. Robinson standing there, emotionless, expressionless. You can see the face of evil as he's hearing these charges read against him: aggravated murder, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and the death penalty is an option. Greg, you were saying it's so good for the country to see how this proceeds in the courtroom.
Yeah, and this is going to be a learning experience, not just for the people who saw this coming, but for the people who have to reconcile their role in this. You know, he said some hatred can't be negotiated with. Well, where did that belief actually come from? It sounds really familiar. You know, if you designate the other side as Hitlerian or fascist, why would you negotiate with them? We said that many times. This rhetoric has been part of the Democratic media industry complex for the past decade. They believe that they didn't have to debate us because we were deplorable. If you remove, or irredeemable, if you remove debate, the only thing that's left is violence. It's the most regressive act you can imagine. This was the product of mass hysteria that then cemented into a belief. And we need to end it. We can't let another one of these things happen, and that means confronting the people that actually still believe this. I think you do need the death penalty for this, because this could be a sanctioned evil. You see people treating Luigi like a folk hero. Why does that happen? It could happen again. We need mutually assured destruction. If you take somebody's life, we're going to take yours, and this is the time for it. Also, there's an amazing contrast here that gets rid of the both sides argument. After Floyd, you had sanctioned riots for 3 months. You had dozens dead. After this, you had vigils, you have mourning, grief, and justice. You know, we don't label people evil and then sanction their death. You know, our response is through the courts and by the law. Everything flows from that. Conservatives and Republicans have been called square forever because we're so hokey about law. Why didn't we riot? Because we don't like doing that. We inherently believe in law and order, and we expect that in others. So this is the right way to do that. I just want to end on this. His rhetoric, which is derived from the Democrats, has done the Democrats irreparable damage by exempting them from debate. They never had to prove the validity of their ideas. All they had to do was implement them, watch them fail, and then demonize the critics. Now they've reached the end point. This is the end point. They have demonized to a point where an innocent, brilliant man died. But now they also have no policies because they never had to debate. They never had to prove their worth. They have no ideas. They have no meaning. They have no value. They're a soulless whole after relying on this demonizing rhetoric to carry the load of their party. Without it, it's just an empty abyss.
It'd be interesting, Kay, to see how the media covers this trial, or if they cover it at all. Friday night, they didn't even air Erica Kirk's address to the country.
Yeah, they're not covering it well already. It's very difficult to watch and look at this person who is not only an alleged murderer, but who is also a thief. This is allegedly the person who stole a husband and a father from Erica Kirk from their children, and he stole Charlie from his friends and from the country. And it's very clear watching him and looking at the text messages that he knew exactly what he was doing. This is not an insanity case. This is not a case of mental illness. Based on what he is accused of and the messages we've seen on Discord and the text messages with his roommate, who was also his trans lover, talking about how he was engraving bullets, which brings up another question. I'm sure Paul can talk about this with the obstruction issue and what his roommate and trans lover actually knew about what his plans were. But in terms of your question about the media, we're already seeing, and we've seen this since this happened almost a week ago now, this victimization of the killer. That he somehow had something in his life that justified this, that he didn't like what Charlie Kirk stood for because Charlie was too hateful in his debate on college campuses, and therefore maybe he was somehow justified in taking his life. And you saw today, even ABC calling the text messages between this guy and his roommate trans lover touching, because there was some concern about what might happen to him after he had murdered, allegedly, Charlie Kirk in front of his family and the entire world. And so you are seeing this idea of the media turning him into a martyr. Utah does have the death penalty. They also have a firing squad. And he's not confessing, which means this could take a long time. And you may see him get the Luigi treatment where you have thousands of people online and showing up in person, making this guy the martyr rather than the family man and good American who he stole from the rest of us. So it's their time to make a decision about whether they want to report this honestly or whether they want to turn a monster like this into someone who deserves some kind of praise and sympathy.
Kennedy.
Yeah, and to Katie's point, you can just see the people who've already tried to justify this heinous act. You can just see them getting together to try and raise money for him and try and crowdsource for him to make sure that he's got defense lawyers. And it's reprehensible because the only answer right now is not people in the media or people on social media or professors or teachers falling all over themselves to justify this assassination. The only answer is to come out and say that political violence is wrong, full stop. And words are not violence. You talk about debate, Greg, and how the left has an allergy to debate. And it makes you realize just how powerful the debate was and that tactic was that Charlie Kirk employed on college campuses, and how incredibly necessary that was to make sure that young people there who were being radicalized, who were being propagandized at certain colleges in the country, that at least they had access to ideas, and he was smart about it because he empowered them. He didn't talk at them. He gave them a microphone and invited them to challenge him because they wouldn't debate in political forums, so he had to take the debate to them. And what I truly hope is that college campuses don't act in cowardice and shut down conservative debate and conservative voices and libertarian voices on college campuses, but they welcome it because talking about things in the way Charlie Kirk illustrated is the only way to truly stop right now this violence, this tenor, this climate, and move towards something that looks more like desperately needed rationalization. Or rationality, I should say. We've had enough rationalizations. We need rational thought and critical thinking back on college campuses, in debate, and in society.
We sure do. Paul, you heard a lot of those charges read, and we've seen a lot of evidence so far, especially these communications between him and his trans boyfriend.
Yeah, so what the prosecutor did there, not only in New York it would be an indictment, federally it would be an indictment. This is an information, but I bring it up just because this is what would be called a speaking indictment. Why does that matter? Because it's a situation where you lay out a lot of the facts as you're going to allege them. So you're not just impugning the accused, but you're putting out facts that are known to you that are going to be the basis of your case. In this case, they chose to do that, in my opinion, because they wanted to tamp down some of the lunacy that we're all seeing going around online relative to conspiracy theories, who he was. This guy is actually a right-winger, blah, blah, blah. Very clearly, he was putting out where this guy was coming from. I think we can put to bed any questions about motive at this point. A couple of other things that jumped out at me. The charging of the potential witness tampering and the destruction of evidence, that's leverage over the roommate. Because if you remember, in the initial thing we saw this morning, when the prosecutor gave the hearing, the press conference, talked about the fact that the note was under the dashboard and the police were able to retrieve a photograph of the note. My understanding is they don't have the note. Where'd the note go? Well, who would have destroyed it? Likely the roommate, right? So you're starting to see some of the things, some of the contours of what's going on here. The investigators want that roommate on their side. They want that person right where that person is right now, which is, don't charge me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. And that seems pretty clear from the conversations, the text messages that we've seen. So a lot of that now is being clarified by that press conference, and now, as of course, by this whole thing here, where we got the official charges, which say that it's aggravated murder because he put others in danger other than Charlie. The basis of that is going to be a long-range shot could have hit somebody else, or, and forgive me for being graphic here, but the round at that short a distance, a high-powered round likely goes through. And my understanding is that's exactly what happened. That's not going to be hard to hold up. Aggravated murder is going to go. Let me just close with one other thing that jumped out at me. Again, trying to tease out some subtleties here. The judge called him indigent. All right, if you caught that, right? All right. I want to know what this guy, how he was keeping heart and soul together. All right? He's living with an aspiring gamer who's transitioning, right? Which costs a lot of money, by the way. That's all kinds of hormone treatments, all this other stuff. He's going to school. Let me ask, are there student loans? Would anybody be shocked to find out that they have $200,000 in student loans, and that's how they're managing to live at home, doing nothing more than plugging themselves into the internet, into a progressive ecosystem that creates this kind of stuff? You know, this is not that fringe. When you consider, the left's going to come back with, oh, Donald Trump says outrageous things. Donald Trump doesn't advocate for killing anybody. Last I checked, the guy who almost became the vice president, Waltz, literally said after 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life, oh, I woke up today, he's still alive, huh? Something to that effect. You know, this is far more inside the mainstream, the Democratic Party, than anything on the right. So the both sides doesn't work. And to me, this guy, he's not even human. This guy is an excremental byproduct of a progressive ecosystem that has been countenanced and funded by some of the worst enemies of the American experiment.
In some parts of the country, they call him a dingleberry. All right, Jesse, very good.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.